Chapter 29 of Psychopomp Drive. Written by Janeen Leese-Taylor. Read aloud by SkyAsimaru. Chapter 29 Serve. The sun was beginning to set, covering the city of Chester in a rosé wine hue. Below them, people were rioting in the streets, driven to panic by the invading corrupter presence. Bright lights winked as the media took photos to document the chaos. The rolling tides of civilians growing rougher and stormier as the day closed into night. Standing atop the Chester Cathedral, over one of its large stained glass windows, the spirits of gods and men alike observed the confusion below. Finley turned his head to watch the powerful gods next to him, sensing the worry in their posture. Anubis hummed to himself thoughtfully. Large canine ears pointed up high on his head. A very humanoid-looking body, half concealed beneath various fabrics, tensed and flexed anxiously.
"We have not had a gathering such as this for several ages,"
Charon rumbled beneath him. He had moved towards the shape of the cross in the center of the structure, leaning down to peer over the edge with seemingly empty eye sockets.
"The mortals are not equipped for these revelations."
"Monsters in the human world,"
Sallow grumbled from the skeleton's feet.
"That is all they believe we are."
He sighed.
"No wonder they are so afraid."
The cat Grim was standing alongside 3 other felines of different colors. Each one was surrounded by their Amarini, spirits brought back from the dead to defend the living from the threats of the beyond. Amongst them, Finley could see the variety of reapers that were held at the ready. A mace, a hammer, a bow. Each one contained a human soul, sacrificed to protect those that still counted themselves amongst the living. A life without autonomy or identity seemed a difficult choice to have to make. Finley's grip on Sassy tightened, and he could feel her energy pulse through him in response. She understood the motion and answered with her own subtle thoughts, as she always did.
"The humans don't understand that the veil of the in-between has been broken,"
Rykart noted softly. Alvaro stood next to him with a lit cigarette that they were passing between them. Their shared breath sent clouds into the already stormy skies.
"That is why it is so important we show them that we mean them no harm,"
a young white cat, Breton, stated. She tilted her head up to look at the tall Amarini.
"Crowds like these, they have a way of getting out of control."
Sensing movement next to him, Finley turned to watch a pale young man move towards the edge of the ceiling, hands clasping the circular structures that served as lookout towers. Hanley Williams, the spirit that went by the name Spectre, brought to the in-between by a razor blade and a world that never understood him. Beneath his dark uniform, the doll took the form his body should have taken whenever he was born. With a voice as soft as a breeze, Spectre spoke to the spirits around him with the glowing eyes of a sensitive.
"They're afraid,"
he whispered, bright blue eyes taking in the details of the crowd below them.
They have questions that no one knows the answers to. They see us standing here, but they're afraid to look up, afraid we might see them."
He twisted on the spot at the sound of a siren, the Doppler effect causing the shrill alarm to get higher and higher in pitch the closer it came to them. Blue and red lights bounced from building to building, bathing the black and white shop fronts in the warning colors of a tropical insect. The vehicles lined the side streets, lying in wait like a house cat watching birds in a garden. Expectant. Finley frowned, ears perking up at the uncomfortable voom, voom, voom cutting through the air overhead. Angling his head towards the intrusive sound, he squinted in the glare of the searchlight as the helicopter made its way across the rooftop, scanning the spirits that were waiting there like they were statues of their own likeness in the British Museum of History. Alvaro took another thoughtful puff of his shared cigarette, handing it back to his companion.
"They were sharing old photos on the news this morning," he mumbled. "Apparently, someone recognized one of the new Amarini. Were comparing the blurry screen grabs with pictures of some dead guy."
No doubt it has generated a slew of new conspiracy theories,
Reichardt noted in his smooth accent, inhaling deeply and holding it there, releasing the smoke as he spoke.
"It was only a matter of time."
Finley knew that somewhere nearby, next to the falconry and the sound of a bell, Thorne was settled by the television screen with her friends. They would have questions for her, things that would be almost impossible for her to answer. Part of him wished he was there to help her. The other part of him knew that he would only make matters worse. On Finley's right was the second of Salo's Amarini, Samantha Walker Hernandez, affectionately known as Micah or Mama in her mother tongue, was busy brushing invisible dust from Scrappy's shirt, her mothering hands fussing affectionately with every little speck of fluff or collar bent out of place. It was all she could do to keep herself from drowning in the old, painful memories. Gunned down by the very people she had served in her community, Micah often wondered if the change in her pocket had been worth the life that she could have had with her 4 daughters. Scrappy, Eric Price, the 6th, pressed themselves into the woman's affections with a smile. They had never reached their 30th birthday and always believed in their heart that there would have been more time. When cancer took their young wife away, death had felt like a relief to them as well. The NB leaned into the soft, loving touch of the older spirit and let her fix their mess of short hair with a gentle smile like she had always done. They had served as surrogates for one another, a mother and a child connected by circumstance rather than blood. Even after 60 years in the in-between, Scrappy still missed their own mother, and they knew that Micah would always miss the little girls who grew up without her. Sitting next to Salo, Abigail Roberts, the 4th Amarini, let her feet dangle over the edge of the building between 2 rectangular spaces of brick. She rested her head on top of it, her spear clutched in one hand.
"How did it all get this bad?"
she questioned aloud. her blonde tail curled in around her slender waist like a belt. Once upon a time, she too had been an ambulance driver, rushing through the traffic to be the first one at a scene like this one. A high-speed collision had torn her from the living world, alongside the passenger and the patient in her care. She only hoped that they left this world as fast as she had. Black shapes began to materialize over the heads of the crowd, corruptors darting in all directions like a swarm of insects, and covering them in blackness and sound. Thick wisps of black smoke slinked from person to person, as if made of living water, stirring up the fear that was already bubbling up in the living souls' minds. Finley could sense their growing panic in the restless movements along the outer edges. Open hands shot up into the air, waving desperately, like their owners were drowning within the smoke. Several hundred meters above them, the Amarini got to their feet, heads turning as a single figure made his way through the group of spirits to stand at the edge of the old stone building. Dawn, the Dark One, proudly took up position at the head of the assembled group. His long brown hair was caught in the helicopter's tailwind, thrashing wildly around his face and shoulders. His expression was one of heaviness and pain, like the weight of the world was pressing down upon his shoulders.
"It begins," he said.
Sallow turned towards the Amarini in his charge, with eyes like the deepest space, the purple glow of their collective reapers lighting up his fur like a galaxy.
"This is not what I had planned for you,"
the Grim started, exhaling through his nose in a very human manner.
"But there are none I would rather stand beside."
He took in each of the faces around him, the 7 lives that he had given to the in-between, and the souls that had been brought back.
"Remember that we are the dead, and the dead have nothing left to lose. So tonight, I can only ask one last favor of you all. Fight with us. Defend the world that each of you loved so much."
He looked out across the crowds beneath them as the panic began to spread, the screams rising up on the wind to meet them.
"We laugh at the void and face the second death with pride."
Reichardt Griffith was the first to move towards the Grim's side, adjusting his glasses with a determined look. Poisoned on the day of his wedding by a man that had sat by his side and toasted his union, Reichardt had held onto his grief for 200 years. Nothing in his life or his death had been fair. He had once felt powerless, forced to accept those things that he could not change. When he took on the mantle as Sallow's first Amarini, all those years ago now, he knew that he would finally have the strength to create the world that he had longed for. He pulled his twin blades from the inner pocket of his black jacket, clenching them between 2 hands and curling the red ribbons around his long, slender fingers. He knew what he wanted to do for this world and would accept it of his own free will.
"C'est simple comme bonjour,"
he grinned, and stepped down over the edge. Abby groaned as she straightened her back, twirling her spear around agile fingers.
Yeah, what the big man said,
she agreed with a laugh.
Let's do this thing.
She leapt off the edge to follow him, her vibrant ponytail disappearing from sight in an instant. Micah knelt down to brush a hand across the cat Grim's head, stroking the soft fluff there with the ends of her nails, the way she knew he liked.
You brought us all together, Sallow, she smiled softly. We will always choose to stand with you.
She pulled out her sword and tapped the sharp point of it against her collarbone as she straightened. The steel flared to life with a purple glow. She gave their leader one last smile before she joined the others over the edge. The tails of her coat caught in the wind, billowing outwards like Mary Poppins' umbrella as she floated down to rescue the Banks children. Scrappy released a breathy laugh.
What else is there to say?
They asked, backing up towards the edge and leaping up onto one of the rectangular settings with a flourish, stretching up onto the tips of their toes.
Isn't it about time you showed the new guy what you're made of too, Sallow?
Sallow bowed his head towards them as they disappeared, a smile spreading across his feline face. He came to stand by Finley's feet, his eyes like distant and unknowable galaxies, begged for exploration.
Finley Evans, he stated, my 8th and final life. Are you willing to risk the void, the eternal nothingness, for the people that stand below you now?
The silver-haired Amarini's thoughts drifted back to Thorn and his mother, preserved in memories from Hades. He thought of the crying faces of lifelong friends, the dead and dying flowers laid out by his graveside with their bright but wilting colors. He thought of his job as a shop assistant, the future he had planned. He thought of the kingdom beyond and the infinite world below, and all the pain he had let go of in those fleeting moments of the trials. Despite everything, he would do it all again in a heartbeat.
I'm ready if you are,
he answered.
Stand back,
Sallow instructed, and with the flash of purple light, the cat revealed his true grim form. A large black beast, huge and feral like a panther in appearance. It stretched out before him with a loud roar. Sharp blades grew along the ridges of his spine, and his teeth extended, long and sharp, from his jaw. His flesh grew bright as starlight, flames of purple and blue traveling up and down every limb. With another roar that shook the very walls of the church, the Grim shouted,
"Push them back!"
And Finley drew his reaper, the light of their combined magic making the entire cathedral glow with the ethereal power of the damned.
"Good to go, Sassy?"
Finley asked as he held the hilt of the axe between both hands. The spirit within it came to life as power radiated down through the steel.
Let's show them all the power of the necromancers,
she said. To be continued in Chapter 30.